starting to pick up on the congressional warmongers, and we have our first letter to Joe Biden. Let's take a look at this letter, supposedly asking for diplomacy. Let's talk. Hello, Garland here, and thanks for taking some time out on your busy evening to check out my show. All right, so let's get right to it. There's been some heat on Congress recently. One of the things that I saw, I'm going to take some credit. Other people can take credit, whatever. Who cares? One of the things that you may have saw recently is AOC was at an event, and some people were there who heckled her, who went after her for Ukraine, who had, they went after her and, basically called her out for supporting Ukraine. And she stumbled. She didn't know what to do. It looked pretty obvious. And afterwards, she did the usual, they're echoing Putin's talking points, I'll put it like this. You could have been listening to AOC. You could have been listening to Liz Cheney. You could have been listening to John Bolton. It wouldn't have mattered. What AOC said, you've got one entity there, be it AOC, be it John Bolton, be it Liz Cheney, it's all the same. They are parroting the neocon narrative. If you're parroting the neocon narrative, you're a neocon. AOC is officially a neocon. The squad, they're now neocons. So let's talk. Let's take this a little further. So AOC in the squad, because let's face it, this is the way I always put it. If if you're a Democrat, you try to pretend like you're the good guys and the Republicans are the bad guys. If you're a Republican, you try to pretend like you're the good guys and the Democrats are the bad guys. Let me ask you this. Do the Palestinians think one of these groups are good and the other's bad? How about the Libyans? How about the Iraqis? Right? I could go on and on. As the United States pushes neocon, imperialist, murderous policies, inside this vicious international criminal organization known as the United States government, we humor ourselves and make ourselves feel as though we're not part of this thing by separating it, by becoming a part of this group. And then we tell ourselves that group's not the one that's out here doing the murdering and bombing and horrible things. It's the other group. But the people on the outside who are taking the punishment from this monster all know. The Europeans are bit by bit. Some of them are wising up enough to figure it out, but they're learning through pain. Americans will also. But let's talk about a little more background. The heat's picking up. A couple of things are happening now. Donald Trump has been recently saying we need some diplomacy. Donald Trump is to the left of the squad on international politics. To the left of the squad. Marjorie Taylor Greene, oh, she's she's crazy. She's to the left of the squad. People who are considered in American politics far right, when it comes to foreign policy, they're all to the left of AOC. They're to the left of the squad. What does that tell you about the squad? They're just nothing but another imperialist monsters. Now, let's go on. They're starting to take heat. I guarantee they're getting phone calls. I guarantee they're getting letters. I guarantee they're getting emails that say, we're done for you. In fact, one of the people at the AOC event told her, you have become what you said you would come here to fight. And that's it. She's become something worse than what she said she'd come here to fight. Because what the U.S. Democratic Party is under Joe Biden is far worse than what it was in the past. This is the worst. This is, I argue, the most dangerous administration in any government in the history of humankind. It is an extinction level dangerous administration, and AOC and the squad's right in the beginning, right in the middle of it. They've been taking heat, and so finally they write a letter. They write a letter, and this letter is supposed to be, I'm hearing different things. I'm hearing some people say, well, it's a good thing. At least they wrote a letter. Well, it's a start. Let's look at the letter. Let's read this letter together and see if we can make some sense of it. We're going to go word by word on this letter from the so-called 30 members, 90 people in the progressive caucus. 90 people. They got 30. This is the progressive caucus. In the Democratic Party, they got 1/3. For a crap letter, let's read this letter together, shall we? And evaluate it. All right. Just make sure my friends on Rockfin. All right. Thanks a lot. Okay. October 24th. Dear Mr. President, and we're going to go letter by letter on this, then word by word. We write with appreciation your commitment to Ukraine's legitimate struggle against Russia's war of aggression. Well, let's start with that. He's committed to Ukraine's legitimate struggle. So Ukraine's legitimate struggle against Russia's war of aggression. Their struggle is legitimate. So the Nazis in Ukraine fighting as a proxy army for the U.S. to weaken Russia is a legitimate struggle of Ukraine. As they throw Ukrainian bodies at Russian artillery in unimaginable numbers, they see that as a legitimate struggle against Russia's war of aggression. Either they are ignorant of the truth or they're just frauds. To be honest with you, you know what I think? I think they're ignorant of the truth. Let's keep going. Your support, and I mean, this is just garbage. Your support for the self-defense of an independent, sovereign, and democratic state. First of all, the United States overthrew the government of Ukraine in 2014, which means it's not independent. It's not sovereign. Independent, sovereign, democratic. In fact, the Ukrainian government has outlawed before this even started, they closed and outlawed the opposition news channels, the opposition media, the opposition newspapers. They outlawed the opposition party and locked up the leader of the opposition party, who was polling higher than President Zelensky. That is an independent, sovereign, and democratic state, according to them. So let me go on. Your support for the self-defense of an independent, sovereign, and democratic state has been supported by Congress, including through various appropriations of military, economic, and humanitarian aid in furtherance of this cause. So the first two letters say it's a legitimate struggle, and it's a self-defense of an independent, sovereign, and democratic state. Self-defense? Then why do members of Congress keep saying it's a proxy war? Why does Adam Schiff and Lindsey Graham say we've got to fight them over there so we won't fight them over here? We're fighting them over there. They're dying. So now, according to them, a proxy war is self-defense. Now, let me add this. They're independent, right? It's an independent, and it's sovereign and democratic. However, the United States is providing the weapons for this war. The United States is providing the logistics for this war. The United States is providing the targeting, according to the United States, the targeting for this war. The United States is paying the salary of Zelensky, is paying the salaries of every person in the Ukrainian government, is paying the salaries of every police officer, fireman, Nazi sympathizer. The U.S. is paying literally the pensions. It's a sovereign, independent state, and the U.S. is paying everything, funding this war, arming these people, buying their uniforms, telling them who to shoot, who not to shoot, and they would argue that that's an independent and sovereign state. How preposterous. Let's keep going. Your administration's policy was critical to enable the Ukrainian people through their courageous fighting and heroic sacrifices to deal a historic military defeat to Putin, forcing Russia to dramatically scale back the stated goals of the invasion. So This is nothing but a tongue bath to the neocons. Oh, neocons, the lies you told about this independent, sovereign, and democratic nation will take them at face value. The lies you told about Ukrainian winning the war, all true, all lies, all the narratives. So they start off by saying all the lies and narratives put forth by the Biden administration, by John Bolton, by Liz Cheney, by Dick Cheney, by all the liars, all the frauds and thieves and neocons and warmongers, we're on board. That's how they start off. Let's go to the second paragraph. Crucially, you achieve this. Listen to this. While maintaining that is an imperative to avoid direct military conflict with Russia, which would lead to World War III, something we must strive to prevent. They just put the 82nd Airborne in Poland. Do you hear them saying, hey, we got to get those troops out of Poland? They've been pumping weapons. And might I add, we're providing targeting. Hey, we're avoiding direct military conflict. Here's a gun, Garland. Well, what do I do with this gun? Shoot that guy. Well, who's that guy? Don't worry about it. He's right over there. When he walks around the corner, I want you to shoot him. Okay, bang. Now what? I'll tell you who to shoot next. But I'm not involved in this shooting in any kind of way. Trust me when I tell you this. Think about this. I did this stuff for a living. I'm doing an investigation of a murder, and I find out that you gave the killer a gun. You told the killer who to shoot. You told the killer when the target will be there. Hey, when's Garland going to be there? Garland gets out of his car every day at 4:27 p.m. When he gets out, he will walk right across this sidewalk. When he walks across that sidewalk, he'll be in range of this gun. I want you to take this gun and shoot Garland right between his stinking eyes. Boom, Garland's dead. Hey, that's conspiracy to commit murder. I didn't have anything to do with that. I have maintained my imperative not to get involved with the killing of Garland in any way. Sure. Did I tell the murderer where Garland was? Fair enough. Did I give him the gun to shoot Garland? Yeah, you got me on that one. Did I give him all the logistics? Tell him what time Garland would be there, where he'd be, how to aim it, teach him how to aim the gun? Sure. Did I give him a ride to the murder scene, drop him off at the right time, and tell him, don't forget to shoot Garland right between the eyes? Yes, I did all of those things, but I was completely uninvolved in the murder. I mean, it's imperative that I not be involved in violence. Think about how absurd that is. But these clowns, all the time you've done these wonderful things, helping the people, these poor Ukrainians, but we didn't get involved in any way. Now, meanwhile, they're saying the Iranians are providing drones to the Russians. They're involved. The Iranians are direct. Have you been reading that? The Iranians, whatever the hell, the U.S. government is saying they've provided drones for the Russians. Well, there's an argument of whether they did or not, whether the Russians are making their own drones, whether they're using patterns or whatever. But the bottom line is this: whatever's happening, the U.S. argument is the Iranians are direct participants in the war because the Russians are using Iranian drones. Let's just go, for instance, that let's say that's real. Let's say it's real. Let's say it's true, whether it is or not. So if the Iranians provide drones to the Russians and the Russians use them, the Iranians are participants in the war. If the U.S. provides drones, uniforms, targeting, logistics, air cover, I mean, everything, the U.S. government did everything but pull the trigger, they ain't involved. If the Iranians provide a drone, they are involved. Let's keep going. Okay. The risk of nuclear weapons being used has been estimated to be higher now than at any time since the height of the Cold War. They finally said something with some sense in it. Given the catastrophic possibilities of nuclear escalation and miscalculation, which only increase the longer the war continues, listen to this. Listen to this. We agree with your goal of avoiding direct military conflict as an overriding national security priority. Well, he ain't doing too well on that goal. We're going to stay out of it. We're going to provide weapons. We're going to provide targeting. We're going to provide uniforms. We're going to provide money. We're going to tell them who to shoot. We're going to give them clearance. We're going to target, shoot, what time, when, where everything's going to be. But we ain't getting involved in this war now. We already know we're going to be a part of this war. The only thing we're going to provide is money, targeting, logistics. We got some boots on the ground. Fair enough. We're going to do lots of stuff like that. We're going to continue to keep your supply lines going. We're going to do everything we can to keep this war going, but we're not in any way involved. And they're like, yeah, Joe Biden. I mean, I'm reading this so far. You're doing a great job, Joe. And all the narratives that you're giving us is true. And this is something we really need to do. And you're just the best, Joe. Given the, okay, so let's keep going. Given that most people are going to talk about this letter, we're going to read it. Given the destruction created by this war for Ukraine and the world, as well as the risk of catastrophic escalation, we also believe it is in the interest of Ukraine, the United States, and the world to avoid a prolonged conflict. Yeah, well, you got the wrong dude. They've already said they want one. For this reason, we urge you to pair the military and economic support the United States has provided. Now, here's what they say. Let me finish that sentence. To Ukraine with a proactive diplomatic push, redoubling efforts to seek a realistic framework for ceasefire. Wait a minute. In order to redouble efforts, there has to be efforts in the first place. We're redoubling efforts. You know what that implies? That there's efforts. Hey, what are you doing? I'm trying to make a free throw. Redouble your efforts and try to make a free throw. Okay, I'll try harder. But you got to be trying to make the free throw if you're going to redouble your efforts. I'll practice more. I'll bring in a coach to teach me how to shoot free throws. In order to redouble my efforts, I must be trying to make a free throw. But when they say, again, I got a lot of problems with this. Redouble efforts to seek a realistic framework for a ceasefire. First of all, again, it implies a lie. You're a liar. You're saying now that there's efforts to put forth a ceasefire. There ain't none. So right now, your whole thing is a fraud. Let's keep going. This is consistent with your recognition that, quote, there's going to have to be a negotiated settlement here, and you're concerned that Vladimir Putin doesn't have a way out right now, and I'm trying to figure out what we do about that. So they're writing an article to Biden where they give him a tongue bath. They endorse the lies and narratives, and then they literally quote him. Yeah, you're saying all the right things. You're saying you're looking for a way out for Putin, and you're saying there's going to be you're saying all the good things. You're doing a wonderful job. Oh, you're doing great. What the hell is this supposed to be? A tongue bath for Biden, and somewhere in there, they're like, oh, yeah, and something about peace or whatever. Let's get back to the wonderful job you're doing with this war, Joe. Let's keep going. We are under no illusions regarding the difficulties involved in engaging Russia. Listen to this. Given its outrageous and illegal invasion of Ukraine and its decision to make additional illegal annexations of Ukrainian territory, I do have a question for these people. Have you ever heard of Syria? Have you ever heard of the country? There's a country called Syria. And right now, Joe Biden's government army is in Syria. Illegally, the Syrians have said, get out. We don't want you there. There is no mandate. There is no provision anywhere in international law that allows the United States to send troops into Syria illegally without the permission of the Syrian government, to plant them over 1/3 of the Syrian territory, which conveniently happens to be the 1/3 that where all the oil is and the wheat is. So the U.S. government has annexed part of Syria, has occupied illegally part of Syria, is occupying Syria illegally right now, and they say, we're under no illusions regarding the difficulties involved in engaging Russia, given its outrageous and illegal invasion of Ukraine and its decision to make additional illegal annexations of Ukrainian territory. They say that. Will you write that about Syria? You want to write that about Syria? No. Apparently, Joe Biden can go into Syria, illegally annex a third of Syria, steal the oil from Syria, and you know what? The squad of these 30 schmucks, we're the United States. We can do what we want. Oh my God, look what Putin's doing. Let's continue. However, if there is a way to end the war while preserving a free and independent Ukraine, again, you're pushing lies and narrative. Ukraine, how is Ukraine free and independent when we overthrew the government, installed the government, mobilized and empowered literal Nazis, and now we're arming them, we're paying all their bills, and it's nothing but the 51st state, and you keep saying a free and independent Ukraine? They make me sick. Let's continue. It is America's responsibility to pursue every diplomatic avenue to support such a solution that is acceptable to the people of Ukraine. The people of Ukraine have no say in it. They're cannon fodder. Such a framework would presumably include incentives to end hostilities, including some form of sanctions relief, bring together the international community to establish security guarantees for a free and independent Ukraine that are acceptable for all parties, particularly the Ukrainians. That, again, suitable for our parties, particularly the Ukrainians. All parties, that's redundant. But okay, I'm not going to be the English professor tonight. Such a framework would presumably include a sentence. Okay. The alternative to diplomacy is protracted war with both its attendant certainties and catastrophic and unknowable risk. Oh, the risks are very knowable, and you know them as well as I do. Don't pretend they're unknowable risks. Oh, let's see. The extinction of all creatures on Earth. How could we possibly know that that would come from nuclear war? Unknowable risks. Let us continue. Russia's invasion has caused incalculable harm for the people of Ukraine, leading to the deaths of countless thousands of Ukrainian soldiers, displacement of 13 million people, while Russia's recent seizures of cities in Ukraine East have led to the most pivotal moment in the conflict and the consolidation of Russian control over 20% of Ukraine's territory. Again, 600,000 dead in Syria, 1 million dead in Iraq, hundreds of thousands dead in Libya, in Ukraine. I got an idea. Look up the Jakarta Method. That was a great book. I might have it right here. I think I probably do. Where the U.S. went in 1965 and installed a dictator, and they immediately went out and killed 700,000 people in 4 months. Was that Putin? Was that Putin? How about Vietnam? 2.5 million Vietnamese killed, 800,000 Cambodians and Laotians killed in bombing. Was that Putin? You guys got a short memory. That's all I'll say. And now the United States comes to Russia's border, overthrows the government of Ukraine, arms Ukraine to the teeth, building for war, literally goes to Ukraine and says to them, we are going to go on the offensive against Russia. Literally said that to the Ukrainians in 2017. And Putin's this invasion is unthinkable. How could he, who could have possibly seen this coming? All right. The conflict threatens an additional tens of millions more worldwide as skyrocketing prices in wheat, fertilizer, and fuel spark acute crisis in global hunger and poverty. One thing you might not have figured out: Joe Biden's owned by the people that are making trillions, millions, and billions of dollars off of this. Oh, you might want to look up how ExxonMobil and Royal Dutch Shell and some of these other oil companies are doing. They're doing pretty damn well, my friend. They are happy to see these. This is not an accident. This is not a bug from the Ukraine conflict. This is a feature of the Ukraine conflict. A war that is allowed to grind on for years. Again, if we want to know what I'm doing, if you're just coming in, I'm literally reading the letter that 30 members of the Progressive Caucus wrote to Joe Biden, and it is a piece of crap. Okay, continue. The conflict threatens an additional tens of millions of okay, all right, got that. A war that is allowed to grind on for years, potentially escalating in intensity and geographic scope, threatens to displace, kill, and immiserate far more Ukrainians while causing hunger, poverty, and death around the world. Yeah, that's what they kind of neocons like to do. The conflict has also contributed to elevated gas and food prices at home. Yes, that's what they're trying to do. It's also contributed to elevated gas and fuel profits to the companies that do that. In case you hadn't figured that out, they're sitting around Joe Biden high fiving, bap slapping, and fist bumping because they're making all of this money. Uh, Economists believe that if the situation in Ukraine is stabilized, some of the speculative concerns driving higher fuel costs will subside and likely lead to a drop in world oil prices, which is one of the reasons they ain't going to do it. Okay. You talk to, if Joe Biden was looking like, yeah, well, you're making sense. Let me get down to the next paragraph. Oh, I'm doing a wonderful job. Perhaps we should do a little diplomacy. And that might bring down oil price. Oh, hell no. Woo. Hey, ExxonMobil, you're not going to believe what these idiots want to do. You're cutting your own throats. Don't remind Joe that they're making but more money from ExxonMobil, because that's kind of the plan. Let me continue. Uh, we agree. Everything is agreement. We agree with the administration's perspective that it is not America's place to pressure Ukraine's government regarding sovereign decisions. They overthrew the government. And with the principle you have enunciated that there should be nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. Well, when you overthrew the government, was that Ukraine? You're paying for everything for Ukraine. Let's continue. Now we'll get to more. There's more. Uh, But as legislators responsible for the expenditure of tens of billions of U.S. taxpayer dollars in military assistance in a conflict, we believe such involvement in this war also creates a responsibility for the United States to seriously explore all possible avenues, including direct engagement with Russia to reduce harm and support Ukraine in achieving a peaceful settlement. In May, President Zelensky, despite deadlocked negotiations, reiterated that the war will only definitively end through diplomacy, and had previously explained that any mentally healthy person always chooses the diplomatic path because he or she knows, even if it is difficult, it can prevent the loss of thousands, tens of thousands, and maybe even millions of lives. In conclusion, we urge you to make vigorous diplomatic efforts in support of a negotiated settlement and ceasefire, engage in direct talks with Russia, explore prospects for a new European security arrangement acceptable to all parties that will allow for a sovereign and independent Ukraine. That ain't happening. Soon as you said, yeah, we'll do this and a sovereign and independent Ukraine. Oh, no, no, no. We will not have a sovereign and independent Ukraine. Do me a favor, guys. Write this. When you're finished with this, also write this thing and change all those words to Taiwan. Change them all to Taiwan too. It's the same damn thing. And in coordination with our Ukrainian partners, such as the Azov Battalion, our Ukrainian partners, the ones that are running around with the swastikas tattooed all over them, that's our Ukrainian partners. Seek a rapid end to the conflict and reiterate this goal as America's chief priority. Sincerely, let's go over the names. From Pramila Jayapal, Earl Blumenauer, Corey Bush, the squad, Chewy Garcia, Raul Grijalva, Ro Khanna, warmonger, Barbara Lee. What happened to Barbara Lee? She voted against the Iraq. She voted against the Afghanistan war. And now she is happy to see us go to that great place in the sky where extinct species go. Good work there, Barbara Lee. Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Presley, Sheila Jackson Lee, Mark Pocan. I don't even know this guy's name, Vasquez, Yvette Clark, Gwen Moore, Hank Johnson, Rashida Tlaib, Mondaire Jones, AOC, Peter DeFazio, Jamal Bowman, who's another one that's gotten heat, Marie Newman, Alma Adams, Charlie Pingree, Jamie Raskin, who, let me tell you, mind if I say something about Jamie Raskin? Oh, give me a second. Andre Carson, Mark DeSonia, Donald Payne. Let me tell you something about Jamie Raskin, my thoughts on Jamie Raskin. I can remember one time I worked with Jamie Raskin on a bill in the state of Maryland. I was actually working for the ACLU. I was working in Annapolis on legislation, and there was a bill, and we worked with some libertarians, et cetera, to work on a bill, and he seemed like a nice guy. I kind of liked him. And then He went to Congress and he turned into Joe Jamie neocon warmonger. Russia's the enemy. Russia, 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 Russiagate, pro super CIA, love the FBI. I mean, he just turned into Bill Kristol and John Bolton. And God, what a horrific individual he has become. God. At any rate, so that's it. That's the whole thing. That's the bull crap they've gotten. But now, so let me say this. Let's go here. Let's go here for one thing. We urge you to make vigorous diplomatic efforts in support of a negotiated settlement and ceasefire. Okay, that's interesting. I would like to bring to your attention an article that I think it would be worth our while to look at. And perhaps they maybe should have referenced this article beforehand, before they said, Joe Biden, we want you to bring peace in Iran and to go for peace. Boris Johnson pressured Zelensky to ditch peace talks with Russia. The British government has become an obstacle to peace in Ukraine, Stop the War Coalition said. The conflict there is developing into a proxy war between Russia and NATO, and it is the Ukrainian people who suffer the consequences. Look at this. The Ukrainian news outlet, Ukrainska Pravda, this is the Ukrainian outlet, reported Thursday that British Prime Minister Boris Johnson used his surprise visit to Kiev last month to pressure Volodymyr Zelensky to cut off peace negotiations with Russia, even after the two sides appeared to have made tenuous progress toward a settlement. Citing unnamed sources from Zelensky's inner circle and advisory team, Pravda reported that Johnson brought two simple messages to Kiev. The first is that Putin is a war criminal. He should be pressured, not negotiated. And the second is that even if Ukraine is ready to sign some agreements on guarantees with Putin, they are not. We can sign an agreement with Ukraine, but not with him. Anyway, he will screw everyone over, is how one of the Zelensky close associates summed up the essence of Johnson's vital. Johnson's position was that the collective West, which back in February had suggested Zelensky should surrender and flee, now felt that Putin was not really as powerful as they had previously imagined. Moreover, there's a chance to press him, and the West wants to use it. So, on one side, you got these people saying, hey, Joe Biden, let me see if I can find another. Well, no, we'll leave it at that. Now, I don't know if you've been paying attention, but pretty much the State Department, the Biden administration has responded by saying, go to hell, you idiots. You're not part of the decision-making process, and we ain't listening. That's the bottom line. And you know what? They didn't do this because they want to bring peace in Ukraine. They didn't do this for the good of the order. In my opinion, when you read that piece of crap tongue bath for Joe Biden, you're doing great. Oh, we agree with you. We support you. You're doing a great job. All the CIA lies and narratives that you were telling, we got them. We got your back on those. Everything's true. No, you never overthrew the government of Ukraine. Just Russian propaganda. Recently, believe it or not, I don't know if you're familiar with this story. I'm not gonna bother to look it up. I could. Petro Poroshenko, who was the president of Ukraine, the puppet president of Ukraine under the U.S. after the coup, said that the U.S., after the U.S. made a coup to Ukraine, made a deal. It was France and Germany and Ukraine. Russia was an observer. They weren't part of the deal, but it was a ceasefire in the eastern Ukraine. And the bottom line was it was supposed to be a peace deal. Petro Poroshenko, who is the president of Ukraine, recently came out and said that deal was made just to hold Russia off until we could get strong enough to go to war with them. It was a lie. So here's my question. Russia had a deal with you. It was called the Minsk Accords. And Petro Poroshenko came out and admitted the truth. We were never going to go by that. We made a deal with Russia just to hold Russia off long enough. There's an old saying about diplomacy is the art of saying nice doggy until you can find a rock. It's exactly what it was. It was a matter of them saying, yeah, Russia, oh, we got a deal. Yeah, we're going to. And Russia was like, well, when are you going to start the deal? Well, not quite, a little bit more. I don't know about that. Russia's, hey, we got a deal. Go ahead, move forward with the deal. Well, it's supposed to be a ceasefire. You're going to stop shooting at the people in Donbass? Not right now. We're working on that. We're going to actually stop, but just give us a little more time. We can't talk with you right now. We're working on it right now. Hold off right now. And the whole time they were saying that, they were digging trenches, they were sending more weapons, they were preparing for war. They made a deal with Russia called the Minsk Accords. And as Petro Poroshenko admitted, it was a fraud. The only reason they made that deal was to hold Russia off for a while so they could prepare for this war. The United States wanted this war. They overthrew the government let's be honest. They overthrew the government of a country on the border of Russia and started pumping weapons into that country. What do you think they did that for? Why do you think they chose Ukraine? Do you think it was like they liked the weather? Maybe they got lots of weed, good fishing on the Black Sea. You think that was it? Or do you think it's possible that the US empire specifically chose Ukraine because it was on Russia's border and they wanted to use that to go after Russia? Well, let's start here. In 2019, the US Pentagon wrote, basically paid for a document co-authored a document written by the Rand Corporation that specifically said that they could use Ukraine as a tool to go after and weaken Russia. So the US government says we can use Ukraine as a tool to weaken Russia. They then try to use Ukraine as a tool to weaken Russia. And these schmucks have the nerve to say, you're doing the right thing, Joe. And it's all about diplomacy and all democracy and independence and sovereignty. It's all a pile of bullshit. There's only one question that I have for those people. Are you ignorant of the truth? Or are you lying and you know the truth? Because either one is inexcusable. It's inexcusable for you to be in Congress and be ignorant of the fact that the US overthrew the government of a country on the border of Russia, that the US Pentagon co-authored a study that said we can use Ukraine to destabilize Russia, that it's of Russia's vital interest. That Barack Obama said, look, Ukraine will always be part of Russia's vital interest, but it will never be part of ours. Are you telling me as members of Congress you don't know any of that stuff? Are you just imperialist tools and you're willing to go along with the lies? See, first of all, I understand people saying that's a start. Yeah, that's a start. It's a move in the right direction. It ain't, to me, in a way, it's a move in the wrong direction. If you're going to write a document ostensibly saying you want peace with Russia, and it's full of lies, and that document does nothing but support lies from front to back, from beginning to end. Anybody who reads that, the American people will read that. And when they read that, they'll believe lies. What's wrong with telling the truth? You see, what they're not going to do, they're not going to speak truth to power. That's what what I want to do is not some bullshit document where you give Joe Biden a tongue bath and tell him he's right about all his lies. John Bolton, Bill Kristol, they would endorse that letter, all except for one little part. They'd say, yeah, it's all good, 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 good. Oh, yeah, you want us to negotiate? No, we ain't doing that. But the rest of the letter's great. Let it go through. They'd all approve it. They'd say, let it go through, because it supports their false narrative. So it's worth their while. And anybody that reads it, might think that the false narratives are true. They don't care. They know they're not going to seek peace. They know, first of all, why would Russia believe anything that they say anyway? If they make a deal, the last deal that Russia made with them, they have since admitted that they only made the deal so that they could hold Russia off until they could go to war with them. You think Russia's going to really believe a second deal? Certainly not. So I understand people who are saying it's a start. All it is they got heat and they're trying to get out from under that heat. This is pro forma. They just did this so they can then go back and say, see, we're really anti-war. Show me something. Vote against the next money going out. You ain't going to do that. Say, when next time Trump or anybody on the right, Marjorie Taylor Greene or whoever says, look, we shouldn't be over there, this is problematic, agree, say, yeah, they're right. You're not going to do that. The only thing you're going to do is what you're allowed to do. You're going to talk to them. Yeah, I mean, you're going to talk about it. When Marjorie Taylor Greene and Trump says, "Hey, I think we just need peace," you'll be right there with Joe Biden and Bill Kristol calling them Russian puppets and Russian stooges because they want peace. You'll be right there saying Elon Musk is a Putin bot because he wants peace. So it's the first thing we've gotten out of Congress, but to say it ain't much is an understatement. It is packed with lies. It is packed with support for lies, and it refuses to accept reality. Look. Let's start here. I'm not going to be on much longer, but let's be honest about this. I like to use these types of things. If a person has some kind of a problem in their life, and let's just say it's substance abuse, anything, whatever, right? The first thing they got to do admit is that they got substance abuse. Let's say a person is they're verbally abusive of their partner. They can never stop. Hopefully their partner will leave them. They probably ought to. But let's just say they decided they're going to work it out. Don't they first have to admit that they're verbally abusing their partner, and then they can go to get counseling and maybe change? If they got a problem, if they're on drugs, if they're on whatever, don't they have to admit, I got a problem with this cocaine? Zelensky, wink, you might want to listen to this part. I got a problem with cocaine, and I need to fix it. I need to do something about it, right? Hunter Biden, I've been smoking a little too much crack lately. I need to get my act together and get off of this crack. It's ruining my life, right? But if you're going on writing a letter, "Hey, what are you doing there, Hunter? Man, I just bought the prettiest crack pipe." You know the thing about crack pipes? They're beautiful things. There's nothing like a crack pipe. It just sits there and just calls your name, and it just says, "Hunter, come to me." And I go to that and I pick it up and I admire its beauty. Now, crack, let's talk about crack. Not a normal substance. Get you really high and you feel good and you party. And you got a couple hookers there to snort coke off their butt. Oh my God, it's wonderful. Trust me, when Hunter's saying that, he ain't thinking about quitting crack. He's thinking about how he can get some more and some more hookers and some more booze and all the things he needs because he's talking about how wonderful it is. If Hunter Biden wants to quit crack, he has to say, "Man, this stuff's ruining my life and it's going to tear up my health. I don't need to do this." Then when somebody says that, listen to what somebody says. If they're like they want to quit crack, drinking, whatever it is, some guy says, "My wife's leaving me. My kids won't speak to me. My job's on my last leg. They told me if I come to work drunk one more time, I'm fired. My family's done with me. I came to a picnic and got in a fight with my brother again because I was drunk. Man, those things, nah, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to get in a 12-step program or whatever the hell, and I'm going to stop drinking," right? But first, you have to admit that there's a problem with those things, don't you? You can't just say, "Yeah, man, my favorite is Maker's Mark. I love that stuff." Now, Jack Daniels is good, and a little Crown Royal, a nice smooth whiskey. You got to get the reserve. They got apple now. Did you know that they got Crown Royal apple? Put it on the man when you see it swerving between it's a little piece of heaven. You do that, you ain't gonna quit drinking if you got an alcohol. If you're Hunter Biden, you ain't giving up crack. If you're whoever else and you got an alcohol problem, you're going to keep drinking. You're describing the alcohol as a pleasant thing, as a wonderful thing. You love it. You ain't quitting. You have to say, "My life's a living hell, and this is causing my life to be a living hell. I got to do something different." Whatever it is, smoking, you name it, overeating, anything it could be, anything. But if you're writing letters like this that says, "Joe Biden, oh my God, when it comes to Ukraine, dude, we didn't even know what to say. You're doing such a good job. Look, we've got some quotes from you. Listen to these quotes. Oh, it was brilliant when you made those quotes, and everything's going so well. You're doing such a great job. You're really carrying on fantastically with this Ukraine thing." That's what this freaking letter says. And then somewhere in there, you're like, "But, for as wonderful a job as you're doing, if you could add a smidgen of diplomacy in there." Now, plenty of weapons. We got your back on that. 50 billion. Come on. You're cutting us a little slow. We want to go to 100 billion. But I'm just saying, just throwing this out there, you could add a little teeny touch of discussion about maybe a ceasefire or something. Just do that and we'll be happy. They ain't asking for much. That ain't nothing. Think about it. Somebody wants you to do something and they just walk up to you. Hey, Garland, yeah, you're doing a great job. Thanks. I mean, fantastic, really. Yeah. Would you mind changing just a little bit? Nah, I don't think I want to. Oh, that's no problem, man. As good a job as you're doing. We're just throwing that out there. But I mean, if you don't want to change, hey, as great a job as you're doing, look, you don't need. Does this sound? Listen to this. I'm going to read a couple sentences. Does this sound like people who are unhappy with what Biden's doing in Ukraine? We write with appreciation for your commitment to Ukraine's legitimate struggle against Russia's war of aggression. Your support for the self-defense of an independent, sovereign, and democratic state has been supported by Congress, including through various appropriations for military, economic, and humanitarian aid in furtherance of this cause. Your administration's policy was critical to enable the Ukrainian people through their courageous fighting and heroic sacrifices to deal a historic military defeat to Russia, forcing Russia to dramatically scale back the stated goals of the invasion. Does that sound like a letter that somebody's going to ask somebody to do something different than they're doing? It is a tongue bath for Joe Biden and the neocons. And the neocons and Joe Biden know it. When they read it, they're like, you know what they really do when they read it? See, here's the thing about it. A lot of people don't understand this. People who consider themselves tough, and these idiots ain't tough, but they consider themselves tough, hate weakness. When they read this letter, you know what they thought? They hate these people. It just reminded them to read this letter how much they despise you. They read it and they're like, hey, did you read the letter from the wimps? Yeah, what do you think? God, are they revolting? And they just like threw up. Oh my God, do you believe? Are you even going to respond? And they're like, oh, you got to be kidding me. You think I'm going to respond to these mutts? Not hardly. Pramila Jayapal probably called. Hi, Jake Sullivan. Slam! She slammed the phone right down. And don't you ever call me again, Pramila Jayapal, or I'll slap you within an inch of your life. That's how the neocons view these people. And they know it. You know why? That's why they crawled up to him, kissing their ass. Crawled up to him. Oh, Joe. Joe. Oh, we love you, dear Joe. You're doing such a fantastic job. But we're just trying to throw something out there. If you don't mind, maybe a little bit of, before they could get it out of their mouth. Pow! Joe slapped the taste right out of your mouth. How dare you have the effrontery to exist in my presence? Take the dogs away. That's the way Joe looks at them. And you know what? I'm with him. As much as I despise Joe Biden, I got to say I'm with you on this one. Joe Biden, you're right. Neocons, when you look at these clowns, you're right. They sicken you, but they sicken me even worse, because they're supposedly thinking they're on my side. Oh boy. Hey, what happened, AOC? Well, I got heckled and a bunch of people told me I was a warmonger and a neocon because I'm voting for arm. What are we going to do? Well, let's write a letter to Joe Biden. Really, who do we have write it? We'll just send a blank paper over to Joe Biden and have him write it and send it back. And we'll just tell him, can you put a letter in there about democracy? Shit, Joe Biden probably wrote this letter. Why wouldn't he? Well, not Joe Biden, I mean, right now couldn't sign his own name. I'm just saying the collective Joe Biden, the neocon nuts, the Anthony Blinken and the rest of those sociopath fruitcakes around Joe Biden. They probably wrote it for him. Hey, Anthony, we'd like to write a letter asking you to maybe use a little bit of I hate to use this word too loud, diplomacy. He slapped them right. I mean, they had a pen and paper holding it. He slapped it right out of their hands. Pow! You sicken me. You will go back to your office. I will write the letter. And when I bring it in here, you will not read the letter. You will not ask me what's in the letter. You will sign the letter. Do you understand me, you scum? By then, Premier Jellapal, she's already urinated. She's got urine running down her legs. She's so scared. Oh, okay. I signed the letter. And she went back and she talked to the rest of them. And she's like, comes back. There's Jamie Raskin. She's got urine running down her leg. They knew what happened. They knew what happened. They were all like, you know what? When she got, they were waiting for her with a towel to wipe her leg, because they all knew that whichever one of them went into Tony Blanken was going to piss themselves in fear. They went into Tony Blanken, whoever it was, came back a sniveling coward, pissed themselves, and signed the letter that Tony Blanken told them to sign. And then, you know what he did with that letter? She walked in, Tony, here's the letter you wrote for me and told me to give you. Here. Tony Blinken pulled his pants down and wiped his ass with that letter. And then he shoved it back in her face and rubbed it all over the place and said, you get your sorry ass out of here. And you tell that flock of wimps and idiots, do not ever darken my doorstep again. What is she's pissed herself. She's had a poopy letter wiped in her face. What the hell is she going to do at this point? They make me sick. I will say this. Much love to the people who are saying this is a start. I'm not mad at you. Much love to you. I understand where you're coming from. You're hoping for anything. You're praying that somebody, some kind of way, will bring some sense into the neocons. The neocons don't have sense. They reject sense. They're sociopathic ideologues. And giving them some tongue bath ass letter that looks like it was written by Tony Blinken is not going to help. You must stand up to them. If the squad or some of these other people stand up and say, I ain't voting for this no more, then I'll respect them. I'll respect them. Do something. Don't get a tongue bath the joke. Get out of here. That's something. I'm supposed to clap for that. I'm supposed to read that letter and say, boy, they're really moving now. They're moving in the right direction. Let me ask you this. You know, I'm big on timing. Just throw this out there to my dear viewers and friends. Do you think it's possible, the fact that we're 2 weeks away from the midterms and America is turning away from this bullshit? Is it possible? Am I cynical just to think that these rat bastards did this? Because it's 2 weeks away from the midterms and they are frightened. They're afraid that they're going to lose their jobs. They're going to lose their little committee assignments. They're going to lose all that money that comes in from $20,000 an hour or a word speaking engagements that they get. Do you think it's possible that they wrote this tongue bath for Joe Biden disguised as a peace letter, as a diplomacy letter, just so they could going in? See, now what do they have to do? They have to like go on stages and speak to people. They have to go. Now they have been harassed. They have been attacked. They have been exposed as the warmongers they are. And now over the next 2 weeks, some of them are actually going to have to get up on stage and say, vote for me. Vote for us. Help the Democrats get in. And you know what's going to happen, don't you? They know that there's going to be people in the room screaming, you bastards are going to kill us all. We hate your guts. And what they want a shield. They want something to hide behind. That's all this damn letter is, something to hide behind. Well, you know, I'm glad you brought up the Ukraine war. And as much as we love this war, as much as we love a proxy war against Russia, as much as we love to risk extinction of humankind, nothing we like better than that, we still wrote a letter in which we praised the Biden administration and all the neocons for you know, literally risking the extinction of humankind. But somewhere deep buried in the bowels of that letter was an inference that possibly, you know, diplomacy could be considered. That's all it is. It is a protection for their sorry asses. It is something for them to say, look what we did, we tried. And they'll go right back to Joe Biden and they'll vote for whatever the hell they need to vote for. And they'll be standing there screaming. And as soon as, and here's what kills me, as soon as some Republican stands up and says, hey man, I don't think we should do this war, but like this is, even if the Republicans say it's too expensive. Look, morally, I would say, look, you got to look into the reality here, man. We're doing it here. We're jumping right to Taiwan. And if we don't stop doing this shit, it's going to go bad, right? This is what we're doing. We've gone from war with every Muslim country to try to control the oil to now war with any peer, a proxy war with any peer economic and military competitor to try to bring them down. We're just a war machine. And if you don't come out and say that, if you have an alcohol problem and you don't come out and say, my choices are destroying my life, I need to make different choices. If you're a crackhead and you don't need to say, and you're Hunter Biden and you don't come out and say, I got a problem with crack and it's destroying my life and it's not good for me. If you don't do that, you're not doing anything. You're wasting your time and mine too. And if they are writing tongue baths for Joe Biden, where they're saying you're doing such a wonderful job, but perhaps you can consider diplomacy, they're worthless bastards to me. And is that a right step? I don't think it is. I just think, here's the thing. Why? They're doing it because of pressure. Here's what I have to say. If you can get a little bit like that out of that, you can get them to do that. Here's what they are telling you. Here's what they are telling you with that letter. They're feeling the heat. They're saying they're feeling the footsteps. You know, you're running down the field of football and there's footsteps behind you. Somebody wants to tackle you. They hear the footsteps. They feel the heat. Now, they haven't done a damn thing but tongue bath Joe Biden and the neocons, but that's okay. They may that I don't think it's a good move in what they're doing, like some people do. But what I do think is this: it's a sign that they're feeling the heat. And you know what you need to do when they feel the heat? Turn the heat up. That's what needs to happen. The heat needs to be turned up on these people. Well, my name's Garland Nixon. Thanks a lot. And we got some people, some kind people. I see some super chats, and I'm going to check on the super chats, and we're going to answer some questions. Let's do that. Garrett says, as a Canadian, I can confirm Crown Royal is my favorite whiskey. Legit, it's amazing. That's good stuff in it. Crown Royal, put a little bit of ice. Woo-hoo-hoo. How about Reserve? That's a good whiskey. Good. Canadians got some good whiskey now. Let's see. Oh, we got more people here. Serge, thanks, Serge, says, just two examples. The Spanish government consists of socialists and communists, and yet it supports NATO. And Putin cites a Hitler-worshipping immigrant Russian philosopher of the last century. A Hitler worship. Who's that? I don't know. 2 of 2. Okay, well, I'm sure there's a 1 here. So Serge says, would you agree, Garland, that politics now is contradictory to the point of being schizophrenic? Yes, it is. It absolutely is. But it's not anything new with the U.S. empire. That is the nature of empire. Empire has to lie and be one big contradiction because it's do as I say, not as I do. That's the rules-based order. Let's look. Who else? Josh says, thanks, Josh. The first few paragraphs are like a mating call to the powers that be, letting them know they are ideologically on the same page. Exactly. The first 2 paragraphs are nothing but saying, look, we got your back on these false narratives. We are part of the machine. You got some false narratives, and we got your back on the false narratives now. Here's what let me interpret this letter for you. Part one, we got your back on all the false narratives. Part 2, we got your back on everything else. Part 3, it would be nice if you use diplomacy, but we ain't going to pressure for it. Part 4, we're going to continue to support all the money you could possibly ever ask for to go to Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, General Dynamics, and Grumman. You ask and it shall be given. That's all that letter is. That's how I read that letter. Let's look at the bottom of the new comments. Did we miss anybody? Did we miss anybody? Doesn't look like it. Let's look at Rockfin. Ooh, we got the people at Rockfin. Let's look what we got at Rockfin. Let's go. I'm sure we have some great questions. Chicken Patty. Yay, Chicken Patty. We love Chicken Patty. She's awesome. She has been Chicken Patty. Look, let me say this. Coop W, Chicken Patty, a whole bunch of them. And that is, when I first started doing this channel, I would have 10 or 15 or 20 people watching. Chicken Patty was there. Reckless Abandon was there. Kinky was there. Coop W. There were a lot of people that was there at the very beginning of this channel that used to watch me back in the old Fault Lines days and all that kind of stuff. And I really appreciate it. Let's go. Let's get going on Rockfin. We got some great questions there. And I like what Krampus says. This is brilliant. Brilliant. Sometimes some of the shortest things make the most sense. No plea needed. Just stop funding. How about that? How about that? You don't need a letter that without you need what this. Here's what we're going to do. We're not voting for funding anymore. We're going to hold it up. There you go. That's all the letter you need. Brilliant. Garland Nixon received a tip. Thank you, A Rim. Okay. JVB, thank you. Okay, Mariah M. Let's read. Garland, according to economist Michael Hudson, the powers that be want to send the world into an economic depression. Yeah. The Fed has openly said their goal is to crush labor. The ultimate plan is neo-feudalism. You will own nothing and be happy. They will destroy Ukraine, Europe, and any other country they have to maintain global dominance. The word evil doesn't even cover. Think about this. 2008, what happened? Think about this for a second. We had a crash, right? And it dramatically lowered the value of things. And the people with money went in and bought it all up. And then the value went back up. What happened during COVID? They shut everything down. Everything went down. The stocks went down. Things went down, dramatically lowered the price of things. They went in and bought it back up. They lower the value of things and they buy it. Some kind of a terrible catastrophe is the best thing that happens to the billionaires. They lower the values of things. They're the only ones that have money. Then they buy everything up. Now they can lower the value of everything in Europe. They want to wipe Europe out temporarily. They want to wipe Europe out to total poverty, absolute annihilate Europe, right? Economically. Then they want to come in and they want to buy everything up for pennies on the dollar. And then they want to turn the industry back on. Think about it. The plan is this: Russia's commodities, China's industry. So what do? You take over Russia, you take the commodities, right? You've wiped out Russia as a country and you've stolen their commodities. Europe, what do? It's an industrial power that wants some level of independence. You wipe out the independence, you wipe out the industry, turn it off. You don't wipe it out, you turn the industry off. All the people are fired, all the labor's gone, everybody's living a life of living hell. You go in, you buy the industries, the ports, the everything for pennies on a dollar. It's worth nothing now. You've crashed the economy, right? Now, you then destroy China. This is their plan. It'll never work. You then destroy China, which is the world's industrial engine. So what do now? You have Europe. You turn the industry back on in Europe. You got the commodities from Russia because you stole Russia. You boom, you've stolen everything. So now you own the industry in Europe. And the people in Europe is desperate. So you can bring them on at slave wages. They're desperate to get any kind of job because they're starving, right? You start the industry back up. You bring the Europeans in at slave wages. You've stolen Russia, so you take their commodities, you feed the industry. And now what does the United States do? The United States gets rich. They run the world again. They've got the industry in Europe that they've closed China down and wiped them out. They've got the industry in Europe because they've devalued Europe and then bought everything for pennies on the dollar. They've got the commodities and energy and things they need because they've taken Russia. And what a brilliant plan, except it'll never work. But that's what they're up to. Good work there, Mariah M. Let's keep going. Mariah M. again. I never anticipated just how dangerous the Biden people would be. I say Biden people because Biden doesn't know where he is most of the time. Correct. I'm assuming Newland and the Kagans are behind most of this. So, yes, when Trump gets to the left of Biden on Ukraine, I know we're in big trouble. The progressive in Congress are worse than useless. You are very, very correct. And I believe that's it. Well, thanks a lot, everybody. Let me see if we got any more new super chats. It looks like we got a couple. Let's go. I love answering questions. Dan in the Outback one says Russia has said that the U.S. is agreement incapable. Well, yes, agreement incapable in that because they're liars and frauds and, they're incapable. It's not that they're not capable of doing it. In reality, it's that they have no desire to do it because they want to maintain power. They could make an agreement, but the agreement would have to be based on somebody else acquiescing to everything they want. The agreement would have to be like this. Okay, you and I are going to make an agreement. Here's the agreement. You give me everything I want and I'll take it. Number one. Number two, anytime I decide to renege on an agreement, I can. That's the rules-based order. That's their agreement. That's the kind of agreement that the U.S. can make. Nothing else. I think that's it. Whoa. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Look, don't forget, scrolling across the bottom of the screen there, there's a lot of options. We got PayPal, certainly. Buy me a coffee. That's great. If you don't want to use PayPal, buymeacoffee.com/GarlandNH. Cash App, which is, excuse me, $ DC Radio Man. Anything you can do to help keep the channel going is certainly appreciated. Don't forget, I'm on Rockfin. I see 715 people. That means we got to have 715 likes. We can't have any more than 715 likes. Camilla V, thanks a lot. I can't forget Camilla V. 715 likes. Everybody make sure you smash the like button in the words of Alex Christoforus. Also, everyone who's here, please, rockfin.com/Garland Nixon. No matter what platform you're watching this on, please go to my Rockfin page and become a member. It's free to become a member, costs nothing, and you'll see everything I have with one exception. One exception. That exception is my one premium show I do a month on every week on Rockfin, every Wednesday at 9 a.m. for an hour. I bring on my main man, Scott Ritter, and we do my one premium show with Rockfin creators. You'll notice we all do at least one premium show per week. That's part of being on Rockfin, one premium show a week. But for free, you can become a Rockfin member and see 99.9% of my stuff, with the exception of that one weekly show is my premium show. If you want to be a member of my Rockfin channel, please, you can be free as a member. Remember that. If that one show is premium, it's $9.99 a month to be a premium subscriber to Rockfin, but then you can watch everybody's premium stuff. And I certainly appreciate that. Anybody that can afford that $9.99 a month, that's a big help. That keeps the channel going. That keeps my Rockfin channel strong. So anybody that can do that $9.99 a month, you will get to see the weekly 9 a.m. live with me and Scott Ritter. But if you can't afford it, look, don't worry about it. Just enjoy everything. I appreciate it. If you can do that $99 a month, thanks. If you can do any of the other ways which you can help keep the channel going, I certainly appreciate that. I do the best I can. I'm on as much as I can, and I appreciate all the support that everybody gives me. Peace. I'm out.